Mr. Smith, thank you. Time being 7:02 p.m., Monday, December 13th, 2021. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Laconia. Before going any further, I'd ask Councilor Haynes if he'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I certainly will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Haynes. We're joined this evening by our recording secretary and city clerk, Cheryl Hebert. I'd ask her to please call the roll.
Councilor Cheney,
Here.
Councilor Susie,
Here.
Councilor Whitman,
Present.
Councilor Haynes,
Here.
Councilor Hamel,
Present.
Councilor Felch,
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Here, thank you very much. Joined shortly by City Manager Scott Myers and Glenn Smith is manning IT, our Finance Director. Moving along to item number, thank you very much. Item number 7. 7A, which is the regular meeting minutes of November 22nd, 2021. Minutes of the meeting were distributed to the City Council on Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. Our agenda item 8, which is consent and action items. This is a request by Gilda's Club, New Hampshire. Gilda's Club, New Hampshire has requested the use of a portion of Weirs Beach along with some dock space and boat slips for Saturday, September 24th, 2022 from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. for a Dragon Boat Race Festival fundraising event. Beach will remain open to the public on that day. Gilda's Club, New Hampshire is the benefactor of the event. City Council approval is being requested because this event is anticipating revenues of greater than $2,000. Gilda's Club is requesting a waiver of city fees associated with the event. There is no direct cost associated with this event to the city. This report was submitted by Eliza Kelleher of Parks and Recreation, and she recommends that this request be approved. The city's Special Events Review Committee approved this request at their meeting on December 1st, 2021. The Parks and Recreation Commission has also approved this request conditioned upon further approval of the City Council. So we're looking for a motion this evening to move to approve the request from Gilda's Club, New Hampshire to use Weirs Beach along with some dock space and boat slips on Saturday, September 24th, 2022 from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the Dragon Boat Race Festival fundraising event and to waive all fees associated with the event. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Susie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that they had a great event this year. It went over really well. They plan on adding a boat or two next year, and I recommend people going to see it. It's a really good event.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. There's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. If just as a housekeeping matter, item number 21V, which is a request to designate a portion of North Street no parking. Councilor Felch's will request that motion, any motions associated with that, be tabled and the hearing postponed to another date until all of the abutters have been properly notified.
Mhm.
And another item here, which Are we listed under presentations? I'm missing it right now. In regards to the state school property. Oh, item number 21A, which is a discussion of House Bill 1032 regarding Laconia State School property because of the Representative Huff's inability to be here tonight because of a conflict. That will be postponed perhaps until the next city council meeting, if not even into 2022. So those two items, I just wanted to make note of it. Moving along to item number 9, which is citizen comment for matters not on the agenda. There's a matter that's not on the agenda this evening, and a citizen either online or here in chambers would like to speak. Now would be the appropriate time.
Scott McWilliams, 61 Pearl Street. Mayor, council, good evening. I have and this has been under future agenda items for some time. Item 23H, Fair Street, Court Street, traffic problems and accidents. It's questioning whether that's something the safety committee has been looking into, and if we can expect some kind of a report regarding that particular item in the future.
Welcome and thank you. And that would be under public safety, I believe. Would that be right? And that would be Councilor Cheney's chair of that.
The committee has not specifically addressed that. With all the other things that were going on Court Street this year, and some of the pedestrian issues that occurred there, we were planning on having a meeting after the first of the year to talk about those items.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may, along the same lines, I know the council recently allocated funds for a blinking crosswalk, I think across on South Main, across from the Vista Market. I was wondering if council would consider looking into putting a blinking crosswalk somewhere along Court Street. Crossing is hazardous, to say the least. They're painted crosswalks, but you practically have to walk into the road to get people's attention to stop. I've had a few close calls myself. And not only that, a lot of folks access Bartlett Beach and the Wow Trail, crossing Court Street, going down, let's say, Keyser Court, which again, there are no traffic lights in that vicinity to slow traffic down. And it would seem that that may be a good placement for a blinking crosswalk. And I would ask council to look into that and consider that item in the future.
Thank you very much, Councilor Cheney. Perhaps we can put these areas on your agenda for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for any other citizens looking to make comments for items not on the agenda? Mr. Smith, anyone online? No, Mr. Mayor. Scott, in regards, just to follow up, I see your note here. I wasn't sure whether that would be on the agenda or not in regards to Mike Gagnon.
I think we just do that under the mayor's report. If you're so inclined.
Yeah, sure. Moving along to item number 10, which is under interviews. This is Paul Duggan seeking appointment as an alternate member of the planning board to a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2024. Currently, there is one vacant alternate member position available on the planning board. We're doing
Evening,
interviews
members
this
of the
evening.
council. My name is Paul Duggan, and I'm here seeking the alternate position on the planning board. I believe you have some questions for me.
Would you welcome? I appreciate your raising your hand and indicating a desire to serve. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and why you would like to serve as an alternate member on the planning board.
Okay, well, I've been a citizen of the city for a long time, property owner, landlord, and over the last couple of years, I've had a job change where I'm not traveling as much. I have more time to get back to the city. I've gotten involved in the capital improvement committee. So with the encouragement of some of the committee members and some of the planning board members, they strongly encouraged me to volunteer and give some more time back to the city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duggan. I'd look to my fellow council members here to see if you have any questions or comments for Mr. Duggan. Council Whitman.
Thank you for coming forward. Can you share a little bit of what your perspective is on what you'd like to see that's in terms of the planning board and goals and objectives for your tenure?
I haven't been to any of the planning board meetings, but I'm looking forward to learning more about it and helping to steer the city in the right direction. The city has a lot to offer, and just looking to do a small part and help move it along.
I appreciate that. Paul. Just when you say right direction, we'd just like to have some sense of what your philosophy and concerns about right direction would be.
There's a lot of building going on, so I think each project needs to be looked at on an individual basis. And the things I would like to see is projects that are beneficial not only to the developer but also to the city and the residents of the city. So I'd be less in favor to see a project that's only beneficial to a single investor or a single developer. I'd want to see things that are good for everybody. Win-win-win.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other questions for Mr. Duggan? Seeing none. Oh, thank you very much. And as I was indicating earlier, that interviews are this evening, and appointments will be made at the council's December 27th council meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, members of the council. Have a good night.
Moving along to item number 13, which is public hearing pertaining to the redistricting map. We're going to open up a public hearing now. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the November 24th, 2021 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, SAU Community Center, and Laconia Public Library on November 23rd, 2021. Any action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business this evening. So I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:14 p.m. And if you'd like to speak to this, now would be the appropriate time, online as well as in person.
Mayor, no online attendees have raised their hand.
I'd like to close the public hearing on this matter at 7:15 p.m. with no comments. Moving along to item number 13B, it's the public hearing on ordinance 2021-235-41- Big A, capital A, to amend City Code 235 accessory dwelling unit. Notice of this public hearing was made available on the Wednesday, November 24th, 2021 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at City Hall, Laconia Public Library, Community Center, and the SAU. Once again, action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:15 p.m. on this matter. And anyone here present who would like to comment on this, now would be the appropriate time, as well as online. One at a time. Anyone online, Mr. Smith? I'd like to close the public hearing on this matter at 7:16 p.m. and let the record reflect that there were no comments on this matter. Just a couple of matters under the number 15, which is the mayor's report. We have one opening on the Laconia Business Park Development.
Lakes Business Park
Lakes
Commission.
Business Park Commission. Thank you. We've had an opening for quite some time. There is at least one matter that needs to be addressed. I had reached out to city resident Michael Gagnon, who is a local real estate agent. Many of you may know. He's been very active in the community for a number of years. I had a good conversation with him about raising his hand and offering to serve. I know he met with Scott Weirs to discuss responsibilities and what the position entailed. I think both of us were very satisfied in meeting with Michael, and he certainly is very anxious to participate. And I think his skill set, being involved in real estate for the past couple of decades, would fit on this board very well. So tonight, I would like to nominate him to fill that open seat. I think that'll allow us to have a quorum and be able to meet sometime in the very near future. Right now, should I offer this nomination and wait for a first and a second discussion and vote on it, or how should we proceed?
I think it's more of a mayoral appointment, so you can announce it and certainly engage any questions or comments there might be, but it was just you're notifying during a public meeting.
Very good. So that will serve that purpose, then letting you all know that Michael Gagnon will be appointed. And thank you very much, Mr. Gagnon. I don't see you here, but if you're online, thank you. Secondly, it's great to have a full council here this evening and to look around and see people present. And I'm sorry, Charlie St. Clair isn't here to comment on your sweater. Councilor Cheney, I think he owes you a jab or two. But in all seriousness, there's certainly been, I think all of us who are watching the news around the country are seeing that we have seen a serious flare-up of COVID-19, and as it mutates and we have different strains, I have been in fairly frequent contact with folks at the hospital, and it's clear that they are I don't think overwhelmed is the word, but I think they are working at max capacity right now and trying to address patients who are coming into the hospital with COVID symptoms. Certainly their ICU has been filled to capacity for quite some time. My conversations with Kevin Donovan at the hospital, it indicates they have 17 to 25 patients per day with COVID. It is certainly, and the staff there, and particularly the nursing staff, is exhausted and doing everything they can to keep up. And I think all of us appreciate the work that they and the doctors, as well as the administrative staff, are doing to handle this. But, it seems to me that the evidence is still fairly clear that if unvaccinated, the likelihood of having this affect you and result in hospitalization is higher than if you are vaccinated. And I certainly think that I want to express an appreciation once again to the work that's going on at the hospital, but two, I guess it's my personal opinion, but I think the idea of prioritizing vaccinations in this community is critically important to bend this curve, and to I think we should all think about the long-term impacts on our local healthcare delivery system, which is our hospital, and the impact it's having on individuals, not only who are fighting COVID, but also to the professional staff who are serving patients and members of our community, and doing so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so certainly it's something that I'm particularly concerned about, and I know all of you are as well, but I really think it's a point in time where it has to be. We can't forget about it. And there are a lot of people out there carrying on and doing their jobs and working as hard as they can. And certainly any support that the public can offer them, I encourage the public to do so. So those are the only two items that I would have to share on the mayor's report. And I would look to my fellow councilors this evening for council comments. Councilor Cheney.
I had a dozen items, but the manager threatened my family if I brought most of them up. So I do have one, and that is I want to compliment Councilman Hamel and Councilman Susi for their actions at our last meeting as it relates to Councilman Haynes. I think their quick reaction helped Mark return to us quicker. than if it had been ignored or allowed to drag on. So I want to compliment you both. I suspect on behalf of all of us, but certainly on my behalf.
Thank you, Council Cheney. I think that's seconded by all of us sitting here,
I appreciate that.
and certainly we're fortunate to have the professional first responder staff that we have in this city as well.
Yes.
It works hand in hand. Councilor Felch.
Yes, it's just been a wonderful week at the Tilton Outlets for the children's auction, and we had a really great week. And I just want to thank everybody that was involved, everybody that worked the auction, everybody that bid on items, brought in items. We were able to raise over $583,000 that go out to our children's charities here in Laconia or in the Greater Lakes region. So just want to thank everybody.
Thank you, Councilor Felch, for your work. Any other council comments this evening? How about committee? Oh, Councilor Haynes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having been out of town, not on vacation, I would like to celebrate Laconia. The decorations are fantastic. They've done a fantastic job. The other thing, if I might, Mr. Mayor, I had a chance to read Elizabeth Howard's article, Miracle on Main Street, and it brought back a lot of memories, especially our former mayor. And the article was well written, and I hope you all take pride in the fact that each and every one of you had a chance to be part of that. And the article, like I said, was well written. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Haynes. Councilor Hamel.
Thank you. The only thing is, it said the story finishes on page 24. I couldn't find where it finished. I
It
don't know.
was
if
on
they-
23, Bob.
no, oh, okay. I looked, but anyway. I want to agree with Mark on the decorations downtown. It's probably the nicest year yet down there. And the Christmas parade was very good. Tony and I walked in it, and it was a long parade, but it was great.
Yeah.
Did a good job. The only comment I heard is that it should be done a little earlier so people can see the people walking or something. I don't know. But anyway, and I also would like to thank Lakes Region Public Access for their television broadcast of the children's auction. They, again, did a fantastic job, and just remarkable what that little organization can do to get the word out. So Grace and her husband, Mark, they did a super job along with a few volunteers, to run the cameras and things. So, but it was a great experience, and some good money was raised that'll go back to the community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hamel. Do we have any committee reports or liaison reports this evening? Councilor Lippman.
I don't know if this is the right spot, but we had talked about scheduling a meeting for reviewing the welfare guidelines and the finance committee, and would like to schedule that. Next meeting, if we could, and maybe the first meeting in January, we could meet at 6:15.
I'm sorry, what time?
6:15.
You said the first meeting in January?
Yes. That work for staff as well.
January 10th, 6:15.
I'll remind everyone that to hold on to your original copy here because it's a good sized document.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilor Lippman?
No, thank you.
Any other committee reports or liaison reports this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 19. This is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. Anything on tonight's agenda you'd like to speak to? Now would be the appropriate time. No one here in the chamber? Anyone online, Mr. Smith?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Moving right along to item number 20, which is city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try to keep us moving right along here. You have your financial and operational trends report in your agenda packet for this evening. Very top of the report, the building permit value, the net gain in construction over demolition from new permits. Again, the assessing year runs April 1 through March 31st. So we're through November 30th. So again, 4 months left in the construction year. These tend to be the 4 or at least 3 of the quieter months being in the middle of the winter. And, doesn't mean that no building permits get pulled, but fewer do than in the heart of the building season. But we are at a very strong number of $36.1 million in value. Last year, for the entire year, at this point, we were 28 million, and we closed out the full assessing year last year at 39 million. So we're within 3 million of last year's number, which was by far the highest number we've had probably in the 10 years that I've been here. So continue to be very strong in activity here in the city. You can see the fire and rescue calls are, especially when compared with 2020 during COVID, you can see we're back to a normal level of 2018 numbers where we're going on over 400 calls in the month of November. Welfare number, you'll see a bit of a spike there. Glenn Smith, who's our finance director and oversees the welfare department, just let me know that we believe a good portion of that is going to be reimbursable through the community development block grant, COVID grant that we received. So it's showing up as an expense where we fronted the money, but we're putting in for reimbursement and be truing that number out as we go along. So that's the intent of why we worked with a lot of these social service agencies in the community, and we were awarded well over $300,000 collectively for those efforts. So the city will be reimbursed for a portion of those. You can see the police department activity there, number of calls and such. Down towards the bottom of the page, the city's 2 largest revenue streams, one being property tax collection. Bills were out, I believe, on November 23rd this year. So we had a few people who came in and paid in November. So that's why you see the percentage collected being higher than in most years, because all that depends on the timing of when the tax rate is set with the Department of Revenue Administration of when we get bills out. And to a large extent, that's out of our control. But this year we were a little bit earlier. So therefore, some people came in and paid in November. So that will true itself up with tax bills due December 23rd. Nothing says Christmas like get them in by the 23rd. Motor vehicle registration. I sound like a broken record. I say this every month. I don't know where people are finding cars because you drive around and you look at the dealerships, and I'm down through Concord and down to the Seacoast, and it doesn't seem like anybody has cars, but our residents are finding them. We're over $100,000 ahead of last year's number in motor vehicle registration, and we're almost at 45%. So we're running 3 percentage points above where we targeted to be at this point of the year. So I don't know when that will kind of break a little bit, but it's still holding strong there. You have the full breakdown of all the unemployment by department on the 3rd page of the report. Larger font, so Councilor Cheney can read it more easily. The impact fee revenue, I know there's a question about making sure that we were utilizing the impact fees within the appropriate period of time, or else they needed to be reverted back to the developer. I had shared with you a month or 2 ago that the last one that we were waiting on being used was the school department, and they had indicated during the budget presentation that they were planning on transferring funds out of the impact fee account towards a project they had. So that has occurred. So all the other city related departments there have utilized funds that you've authorized in the past several years. So we're solid with everything there as well. The trust balances, all those numbers are there and current for you. Boat taxes, again, we've kind of ebbed down, not too much boating going on in November, December, but we would certainly encourage people to get their boats registered in January. And by doing it at City Hall, more of those registration dollars stay locally versus doing it online with the state. So we encourage people to register here, and you don't have to be a Laconia resident. Anybody can come into City Hall or any of our licensed boat dealers, of which we have 6 or 7 here. And again, that money stays locally, so it does make a difference. You can see the ambulance numbers. I'm not going to go into those great detail. We spent a good chunk of time on a 4-year comparison a couple of meetings ago. And you can see we had our first little storm precipitation right around the Thanksgiving holiday. So winter season is here. So I'm happy to take any questions on that or anything else.
Councilor Whitman.
On the tax increment finance balance, the Weirs When will it, has it received its latest allotment? Because I think we've been running right around $300 for a while here.
I believe it's received the latest allotment. What probably hasn't hit yet this year is the bond payment.
Yes, so to receive this latest allotment and expenses come in on a quarterly basis. So actually, at the end of December, you see another hit on that.
So the bond payment will hit and that'll put it back in the deficit that we were planning all the way along. But
Yes.
as was mentioned a few months ago, that is running ahead of the pro forma that we did, and it's in a strong position and just like we had planned on it, but
Yep.
it's just waiting on a bond and interest payment.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Scott, as far as the construction values, does that follow the assessing or is that a calendar year?
That's the assessing year. So they track
Okay.
that from April 1st to March 31st.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I
And
wanted to know.
Dean and
Thank you.
his team, they take those and they go through. We don't count electrical permits there because those typically don't add assessed value. We don't count anything that may be happening in a city building or a nonprofit because that's not adding to the tax base. And any demolition that's occurring gets backed out of that. So that's a true net real number that hits at the end of the day.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 21, which is new business, as I indicated earlier, 21A, discussion of House Bill 1032 relative to Laconia, the Laconia State School property. I'm wondering if that could be put on the schedule for January 10th, 2022, on the agenda of the schedule.
We just maybe got a motion to move the table to a date certain, so January 10th.
So I'd like to, someone, if they could motion.
Yes,
for a
I'd like
table
to
date
make
certain.
a motion. to
Thank you
table.
very much, Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hands. It's been moved to another 6 votes supporting that motion. We'll move that along. Item number 21B, motion to table by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. All those in favor of that motion, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion is, or that item is tabled. Moving on to item number 21C, which is to amend the city code, chapter 235 zoning to update section 21.1, performance zoning overlay district, to amend the ordinance to create an overlay district in the Weirs Beach area of the city. I see we have Dean Trefethan here. That perhaps you could walk us through this, please, Dean.
Be happy to.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. Performance zoning was enacted in the city in 2019 following recommendations from the Master Plan Steering Committee and the Planning Board. We created 2 distinct performance zoning overlay districts, one that encompasses the downtown in our traditional commercial areas along Court Street and Union Avenue and the immediate adjacent areas, and also the area encompassing the state school property and a few other properties right immediately surrounding that large parcel. The 2018 master plan land use chapter recommended that performance zoning be considered in other sections of the city, and specifically mentioned the Weirs as being one of those places to seriously consider. So at this point in time, the Master Plan Steering Committee talked about this a couple of months ago. We presented it to the Planning Board. They held a public hearing in October and voted to unanimously approve this to the City Council. This would create an additional performance zoning overlay district. It would include the area we are using the exact same boundaries as the Weirs TIF district. Didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, and try to use something that's already established and people are familiar with. If the Weirs TIF district were to change, this district would, would just be encompassed. Or at some point in time in the future, if we wanted to, we could expand the performance zoning district to include adjacent parcels if that was the desire of people somewhere along the line. The basic premise and the reason for suggesting the performance zoning overlay district is to allow someone to develop the land perhaps in a different way than what would normally be allowed under current zoning. Performance zoning can allow alleviation of regulations such as density, setbacks, height, number of units, uses, those kinds of things. It is a situation where someone would propose the use or the deviation, and then the planning board would have to agree that that was a desirable thing to do for that particular location. Our thinking in the Weirs area is that there are 2 or 3 in particular fairly significant pieces of land that have been vacant or drastically underutilized for a number of years, that perhaps the addition of the performance zoning on those, on top of them, would be an impetus for people to do something with those pieces of the land. It was disappointing to see that the latest proposal for the drive-in fell through, but it's still on the market, and certainly someone could come in and use performance zoning at the drive-in property. But right in front of the drive-in property, there are 2 large pieces of land that one is empty and the other one is drastically underutilized. And then across the street from that, there are 2 pieces of land that are vacant and have been for a number of years. And there are a few other pieces of land that are ripe for redevelopment, and maybe this is the thing that will make it happen. So that's the general idea behind trying to implement the performance zoning district up in the Weirs area.
Thank you, Dean. Any questions from counselors? Director, Counselor Susie, go right ahead.
I'm reading the ordinance, maybe that's okay, and I'm new to some of this and just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. Because as you said, the performance zoning includes also the state school property and the downtown area, including the Weirs, what Dean is proposing now. But item 2 says the planning board shall have the sole authority for approval of all development plan based criteria noted above. Does that mean that the governing body of the city council has no authority whatsoever?
Can you point out exactly where you're reading right here?
I'm on page, or bottom of page, is page 37, item 2. I might be relating it to the different item here, but I'm concerned a little bit about this.
I'm still trying to pick up where you are, but go ahead, Counselor Littman.
So I think it's why, when we interview for planning board members,
Right.
it's important to get their philosophy and what their thinking is. Our major control by state statute is planning board has an independence to it, but we have the right to appoint members to it. We have also worked collaboratively through the master plan steering committee to have informal interaction with the planning board in terms of things that then come back through to us, like this particular proposal. So
I'm still concerned about the long-term situation here. When we're looking at, we know there's a House representative that's trying to bring something forward, but beyond that, and I brought it up before when it comes to the city, okay? This is the sole authority. So when we start looking at, as you said, appointments, we need to dig deeper into some of these appointments, but also maybe revisit this. You said this is a state ordinance?
my understanding is the planning board has, under state statute, correct me if I'm wrong, has by statute some independence that from the governing authority.
But I'd like to get a clarity.
So as it stands right now, the city council has no authority over any approvals of land use at a ZBA meeting, at a planning board meeting. That's not the role of the city council. Certainly the state schools is a prime example. It's owned by the state. If it gets sold to a private person on a purely technical and legal basis, there's no role for the city council to say, should that be sold, or do we like what's being proposed for that site? on a community engagement and for buy-in and support, we certainly hope that is. So that's why I think has been mentioned, our zoning, number one, is important for how property is zoned. And number two, the appointments that are made to land use boards are very important appointments, and they should be questioned. I think, and Dean, jump in if I'm wrong here, and I'll focus maybe on the state school property for a minute here. Somebody has to come in and identify what they're doing for the entire site. It's not, oh, I'm going to come in and just focus on these 5 acres and grant me this, even though I bought 200 acres, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to do later on. It really needs to be a comprehensive plan and provide some flexibility. In some cases, maybe setbacks have changed now, and you don't, and under certain zoning, you'd have to be set so far back from the property line. But if all the other structures on the street are older, buildings built 100 or 200 years ago, and they all sit right up to the curb, why do you want to force someone to be sitting back when it's going to look out of character for what's around it? So that's really focused on the character of the use, how it fits in the particular neighborhood that you're looking at. And again, we can't, the planning board can't grant them waivers or variances on things like steep slopes and other environmental type of things. But if we said, hey, under normal zoning, you can only go 48 feet high, and the request is to go 60 feet high, and they look at it and says, does that, keep with the character? You want to allow that flexibility so that a developer can be creative and that the city gets a positive end result. This is, so under this particular scenario, there's a lot of gray area in there, and the planning board can just say, no, I don't think that works for that site. I don't think that's good for Laconia, and we can reject it kind of on a personal feeling basis. Whereas in most cases, if a developer comes in and they meet the criteria and they come in and they are conforming with the zoning and there's no reason to deny, your hand is really forced. And sometimes, land use boards have to say yes to something, even though maybe they don't feel it's the highest and best use for that property, but it meets the criteria. This allows them, certainly with public input after public hearings, and again, full disclosure of what's the proposal for the entire site. And once that is granted, the developer can't go and say, okay, well, I got approval now, but I'm going to shift gears and go do something else, do it differently. They've got to follow what the approval is. So there's definitely public input process. The council can certainly weigh in, but the council does not have any authority over land use board decisions. It's not the role of the council, even though you're the elected body.
That's my point. We're the elected body representing the constituents, but we have no say.
Understood, but that's how the state law is set up, and it's that way in every community that you go to. I don't care whether you're in Concord or Keene or Lebanon, land use boards are making those decisions. That's the style of government that we have.
I might not have all my facts straight, but I'll use the Lakeport situation, Councilor Cheney.
Microphone a little more.
I'll use that situation where there was, I think, something to do with the reconstruction of the whole fire station was not fully fell through, correct? Or maybe I might not have something straight there, but
I think there was
that's what worries me about is what's going to happen. That's where I'm coming from. I didn't realize that we had no authority whatsoever. That's okay. Thank you.
You do have authority. The authority is to appoint.
Right. That brings back up the next question. We have to really dig into things more.
So
than-
are there any further questions of Mr. Trefathan? Okay, thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So we have a series of 3 motions here. So the first motion we're looking for is to move to waive the reading of the ordinance in its entirety and to read by title only. Counselor, got my eyes closed. Counselor Cheney moves, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Looking for a second motion to move a first reading of ordinance 2021-235-21.1, amending the performance zoning overlay district. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Finally, we're looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on December 27, 2021 during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 6 votes in the affirmative. Correct, Counselor Susie? You with us? I didn't see your hand go up. Oh, okay, gotcha. Didn't see it. 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dean. Chief Beatty's here with us in regards to this, if there are any questions, but under item number 21D, which is first reading of resolution 2021-19 relative to the acceptance of the Leary Firefighters Foundation grant to schedule a public hearing on December 27th, 2021. Laconia Fire Department has been awarded a grant in the amount of $18,595.74 from the Leary Firefighters Foundation. This grant will replace the industrial fire gear washer and dryer system at Central Station. The current washer dryer system needs replacement and is currently on the fire department's capital improvement list for replacement. The grant is fully funded. The only potential associated cost would be if plumbing or electrical work is needed above what is currently on site. These additional costs would come from the fire department's operating budget. Chief Beatty is recommending the city accept the Leary Firefighters Foundation grant in said amount for replacement of the washer and dryer at Central Station. So we'll be looking, we have a series of 3 motions here. The first is to move away a reading of resolution 2021-19 in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Secondly, looking for a motion to move a first reading of resolution 2021-19 for the acceptance of the Leary Firefighters Foundation grant in the amount of $18,595.74 for the Laconia Fire Department. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. And finally, we're looking for a motion to schedule a public hearing December 27, 2021 during the regular council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please. Oh, did you have discussion? Go right
I
ahead.
just
Sorry
had a
about that.
question for the chief. Sorry.
Chief, you were so close.
Right
You-
here. I figured I wrote such a good staff report. You didn't have any questions?
Welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank
Just a
you.
really quick question.
Yeah.
Do you know whether there's additional costs or not?
We don't, because we haven't seen the new setup yet. So once that comes in, and the installers come in, that's when we'll figure that out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor. Thanks. Okay, so all those in favor of this motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes as well. Thank you. Item number 21E, which is a request to appoint a city council representative of the 2021 Deborah Bynars Award Committee. City Council Annual presents this award to a member of the community for their work with the youth in the Lakes region. The award will be presented at an upcoming council meeting. Nominations are currently being sought for someone who has demonstrated a standard of excellence in their dedication to the children of our community. The committee consists of 3 members, 1 representative each from the city council, the police department, and the school board. The committee meets once after all nominations have been received to choose the winner. Has anyone on the council right now served on this committee prior? You have. Oh, look at this. Terrific.
Yes, I've served on it before,
Would like to serve again.
certainly.
Would love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion right now to move to appoint Councilor Cheney as the city council's representative of the 2021 Deborah Bynars Award Committee. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any further discussion on this nomination? You get off easy. Anyone from the public want to speak to this? No, although. In writing, no. All those in favor of Councilor Cheney serving, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 5 votes in the affirmative.
Council Susie was a little.
No, it's fine.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I guess you
Sorry.
can vote for yourself, but if you don't, it's
Yeah.
5 votes in the affirmative. Thank you. Item number 21F, which is a request for the city council to approve a resolution in support of Gunstock Mountain Resort. I want to thank Councilor Susie, who brought this up at our last meeting and has spearheaded this on behalf of the city council. At the November 22nd, 2021 council meeting, Councilor Susie asked if the council would be in favor of submitting a resolution in support of Gunstock Mountain Resort. I think I know the poet laureate of the city of Laconia, Scott Myers, has presented this to us some time ago. And we've all had an opportunity to review it. Any questions in regards to this at this point? Thought it was particularly well done.
I'd just like to thank our city manager, Scott Myers, for putting this together and presenting it to us. I think it's an awesome, he does very well with writing his words. Let's put it that way. Thank you very much.
So right now, we'll be looking for a series of three motions, but really, I think Councilor Susie, would you just read it out loud for the record? I think it's important stuff.
Sure.
This is your,
A resolution in support of a strong and vibrant operation of Gunstock Mountain Resort, resolved by the City Council of the City of Laconia as follows. Whereas supporting a strong and vibrant operation of Gunstock Mountain Resort will benefit Belknap County residents, visitors to our area, and local businesses. The City Council encourages and recommends the following. A supportive and cooperative relationship between the Gunstock Area Commission and the Belknap County Delegation. An appropriate investment in infrastructure and maintenance to keep Gunstock Mountain Resort a destination location. Ensuring that affordable opportunities remain for Belknap County residents to utilize the amenities of Gunstock Mountain Resort. Continued appointments to the Gunstock Area Commission of community-minded residents who are visionary and can work collaboratively on behalf of Belknap County residents. That cash reserves are not removed from Gunstock Mountain Resort so that the fiscal stability of operations and investments in the future years remains solid. That there be ample opportunity for the public comment during public meetings on the future of Gunstock Mountain Resort and those appointed to the Gunstock Area Commission. That the focus should be on what a treasure it is to have Gunstock Mountain Resort in our backyard, and efforts should be focused on how to ensure it remains as such for future generations. The resolution shall take effect upon its passage.
thank you, Councilor Susie. Well, I guess the first motion then becomes sort of moot, right? If we don't need to, we've already read it. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Scott, okay, so let's move on to item. We'll be looking for a motion to move a first reading of resolution 2021-20, a resolution in supporting a strong and vibrant operation of Gunstock Mountain Resort. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. And finally, we're looking for a motion to move to approve the resolution 2021-20, a resolution in supporting a strong and vibrant operation of Gunstock Mountain Resort. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any further discussion on that matter? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Once again, thank you very much, Councilor Susie, for your leadership on that, and thanks for your work on that as well, Scott. Councilor Haynes.
Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate to comment after? I thank Councilor Susie for this, and this has been pent up frustration. I hope it sends a delegation a message. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along to item number 22, under unfinished business, 22A, approval of the redistricting map. As we know, and but to refresh people's recollection, at the November 2nd, 2021 municipal election, voters voted in favor, 1,837 yes to 618 no, of allowing the city council the authority to adjust the ward boundary lines. The city is required to review and adjust its ward boundaries if needed after the release of the 10-year federal census data. As we know, it was a delay in the federal census data this year, which required the city council and the city manager to sort of take this initiative and follow this process. So attached to our packets tonight is the redistricting map and narrative. A public hearing was held earlier this evening. I do not believe anyone testified at that point. Right now, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the redistricting map as presented. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Is there any further discussion on the motion on the table, on the floor right now? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. So we would like to slow this down a little bit. And should we do this to a committee or how what would be the structural structure? Okay, so we'll on them and speak up at the appropriate time. So right now, under item 22B, which is the second reading of ordinance 2021-235-41 : capital A zoning accessory dwelling unit to eliminate the zoning board of adjustment from the approval process and amending certain criteria to amend table 1, table of permitted uses. Dean Trefethan is still with us, and perhaps a brief discussion of this or overview of this, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, would be appreciated, Dean.
Sure do. Good evening once again. Accessory dwelling units have been regulated in the city for some time. The regulation was revised in 2017 following updates in state law. One of the stated goals in the update of the state law and one of the goals that the Master Plan Steering Committee has been looking to do and our master plan adopted in 2018 is to try to encourage affordable housing, workforce housing of all types, not just single family homes, but of all types. This is one aspect of the thought process and the effort to try to increase our housing stock to at least within a small part of our housing stock, create some additional units that are on the small and the smaller side and in theory anyway, the lesser expensive side. One of the things that we talked about at the Master Plan Steering Committee is our experience in the office with people who come in and inquire about the ADUs. At least half of the people that come in to talk about it, once they find out what the process is and what's involved, they shake their head and they say, no, I'm not going to do that. And they go away. So we're missing the opportunity to create some additional units of housing because the process is deemed to be too arduous for a lot of people. They've got applications to fill out. They've got go to the zoning board and get a special exception, and in conjunction with that, we have a number of regulations, which in 2017, when we revised them, probably made sense. But now that we've got some 4 years of experience with them, probably was a little too restrictive, a little too much. So we're proposing to eliminate some of those restrictions and to eliminate the zoning board from the process. As noted in my comments, by eliminating the zoning board, we would, in theory anyway, be eliminating the notification of abutters that next door would be, ADU. I think we can rectify that, and I know there's been some discussion. But I think we can rectify that with just when we institute the process of the administrative approval, that we would include a notification of abutters in that process at the time of application, as opposed to at the time of, say, approval. We will take the application in, it needs to be reviewed. We've got things that we've got to do with that application, inspections to be made, et cetera, et cetera. At that time, we would send out the notice to the abutters, just as we would now with the zoning board process. And at least they would be aware and have an opportunity to call the office and voice their opinion one way or the other if they so desired.
So Dean, if I could just pause you right there on the notice to abutters, is that, I mean, I think we'd all probably feel a little bit better if that were reduced to writing and not just an internal process within the office. Right, so there's something that's got some continuity as time goes on.
Yeah, we'll make it part of the application process. We'll put it on the application form that the abutters will be notified, and we can follow the exact same process that we follow now with abutters.
Oh, okay, Councilor Lippman.
So I'm agree with where the direction of this is going, but I do have some reservations about how we put together the administrative procedure and guidance on this. I'm concerned based on just having been on the council for a number of years of different things that happen depending on how they're documented and changes between people. So I would like us to adopt this evening with a condition that you come back with before it then becomes implemented, that the administrative procedure and guidance to do this. And I'll give you other examples that I think fall into this. I think the abutter one is important. The definition of subsidiary to the main building, that's not, does that mean, equal or half or 2/3 or 3/4? I think we ought to have some sense, for if it's going on a property that has a 4,000 square foot versus a 1,000 square foot, is what is the proportionality that your staff is going to interpret? We don't want it to be, 1 year because certain staff are there, and another year it's interpreted a different way. I'd like there to be, and it doesn't have to be so rigid that there's no flexibility, but I do think that subsidiary needs to be defined. And then things like the calculations of square footage, I think we specify in there that a minimum of 300, a minimum of 1,000, but how is that calculated? For example, if you build a foundation that's high enough off the ground, you can effectively double the size of what you're really putting in terms of what the intent is here. So I think there are things that will help back up the administrative decisions that are being made, and make sure that it's clear what the zone of decision making is. I think when we looked at the historic district, I think you pointed out some things in terms of how far the discretion of can go, and I think we would like to have some sense of that before putting it into practice.
Would you like to see that language before you approve, or?
I don't mind. My motion to approve it, but not be effective until we approve the guidance that you would put together. And for example, there's another thing in here in terms of someone needing to document it's their principal residence. What does that mean? What type of documentation? Is it just someone telling you that, or is it, we've had instances where people tell us stuff and then, it's not what it is. I'm not saying that it's in the same category, but I just think some of the key things that you're going to be building in this need some definition so that you have protection and so that we have consistent policy.
I can do that, no problem.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Susie.
are you saying if somebody comes to you and says that the abutters are not in agreement, whatever, you have a final say, there's no appeal process?
There is an appeal process. In general, it would be staff making the decision based on criteria such as Council Lippman has just outlined. If we decide to either deny for some reason or to approve and then a butter disagrees with that, the appeal would be to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, just as other appeals on, because it's a zoning matter.
I
Even though
understand. I just wanna make sure there
even
was a
though we're removing the
process.
zoning board from this initial decision, it's still covered under the zoning ordinance. So therefore, if there's an appeal, it would go to the zoning board and they would hear the appeal. And until the appeal happens, you can't build the accessory dwelling unit. You can't occupy it, those kinds of things. You'd kind of be on hold until the appeal process carried itself out.
I just wanted to make sure there was an appeal process. That's what I was concerned about.
Yep.
Thank you. Counselor Hamel.
Yes, I would rather, excuse me, I would rather wait until we see all that in writing first, in front of us. And that way there, I mean, if there's anything else that, there's no hurry to approve this, I don't think. But I would rather see everything put down the way it's supposed to be written and what what you're asking, Council Lippman, and if there's anything else that bothers the councilors, then we have an opportunity to get a hold of Dean and talk to him about it. So that's my opinion.
So I thank you, Counselor Hamel. So I guess the intent here is to remove some maybe redundant and discouraging red tape, for lack of a better term, that people may bump into. It is, I think we can all support that, and we all do support that. But certainly I think there seems to be sentiment here that we might make it easier for us if this is a little cleaner as far as the language. So we do have certainly continuity and something that we all feel a little better about. So I guess, would this be a motion to table right now or continue? What would you prefer on this?
Your public hearing still stands for this, so you just would table this tonight and subject to us putting together an administrative approach to approvals. And then when we bring it back to you, you'd be able to approve the changes to the zoning ordinance in conjunction with adopting those administrative approval rules.
So what do you think a fair turnaround time for this is?
I think some of that may depend on if there's other comments that counselors want to chime in, then you want clarification. So if knowing that we've got, different holidays and stuff coming up, why don't we have a couple week period for anyone to chime in, and then we could probably work this up and have it ready for January 10th.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good. I don't necessarily think time is of the essence, but I think the sooner we maybe clean this up a little bit and allow people who want to build ADUs.
So please respond to Dean directly if you've got questions or how to frame this in with the administrative approval process so that he can get all the input, and that way we're not trying to wordsmith it in a month from now.
Okay, motion, go ahead.
Dean, how would this affect, I don't actually want to say gated communities, but communities that might have associations or things like that? Would that fall back on that association to approve that, or who has the final say in that?
Generally, it would fall back on the association. An ADU is, under our definition and under the state definition, is a small apartment that's attached to a single family home. So structures that are already duplex or townhouses or those kinds of things cannot get an ADU anyway. And if you're in a community of single family homes, our usual one that we always point to is, say, Southdown. Their documents concerning either the individual villages or their overall association would control that. If they say no, then we're out of the picture. I mean, it would be strictly up to them.
So if one of those people that own a home would like to do that, they're an association, you would not take their application and say, go see your association first.
Yes, yeah, well, and if they came in, we would say, okay, fine, we'll take the application, but you know, we're gonna need it in writing from your association that they're going to allow this.
Might be worthwhile putting in here.
Counselor Lippman.
So I guess that you made an interesting point. I think also for transparency purposes is that, is it the intent under this administrative to follow that it would be ADUs to single family homes only, or is that broader than that?
It is only for single family homes. If you already have a duplex or above, and if you have a townhouse, even though, you know, each unit could be individually owned, if you're in a townhouse type situation or condominium or anything like that, ADU is out of the picture
I mean,
anyway.
that's the kind of thing I think in terms of the guidance that would be helpful to be upfront with, so that people don't spend time
I would
unnecessarily.
probably, I mean, probably we're looking at two pieces. One is a guidance document, but also like Dean said, some changes to the application that'll say abutters will be notified, and maybe the statement like that will be, if you're in a homeowners association or a private development, you know, your association documents are the ruling document type of thing. So I think we put it right on the application for them.
My only concern about the application is that over time, with people change, that they may not realize what they're changing or doing by just changing a form as opposed to having it as a guidance
I
document.
think we can mirror it up and marry it up and have it together for you.
Another one, just if I could, Dean, and there's leave of absence. You know, what does that mean in terms of, I don't really care how we define it, as long as we define it in a consistent way.
Yeah. One of the basic premises under the ADU state law and our ordinance is that the property owner needs to be living in one of the two units. Doesn't have to necessarily be the bigger house or the main house. It could be the smaller unit and they rent out. But if for some reason they are not in whatever unit they're occupying, you know, they maybe go to someplace for the winter or whatever, they can't rent that out on any basis. And in our short-term lodging ordinance, we have a separate condition there that you cannot do short-term lodging in any structure or property that has had an approved ADU, because the purpose of the ADUs was for workforce housing, was not for, commercial type situation. So you can't do short term, if you decided to go to Florida for the winter, you could not rent out your place for, a short period of time or whatever.
Thank you. So I think there's a motion to table on the floor right now by Counselor Hamel. So is there a second? Second by Counselor Felch. All those in favor? 6 votes in the affirmative. That item is now tabled. I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:15 p.m. Thank you all very much.
Merry Christmas, everyone.